exemption handling in Python, right? So exemption handling in Python is a mechanism that allows you to gracefully handle errors that may occur during the execution of a program. So an exemption is an error that occurs during the execution of a program, for example, dividing by zero or accessing the list of index that doesn't exist. So there are so many types of exemption handling here, right? So in this is computer program one class. So what we're looking at here is just a value error, type error, and the zero exemption error. So that's what we're going to be looking at, the zero division error. So that's what we're going to be looking at here, right? Yeah, but the main ones, right? So, but in our web technology class, we'll look at more errors because we're dealing with the data-driven application, so we'll look at more errors there. So here we're just going to be looking at three for this computer programming one. So in computer programming two, I'll actually look at more exemption errors, right? So now for every method you write as a good developer when you're designing, say that if you're designing a mobile application or you're designing a web application or you're designing a desktop application, for every method you write for that particular application, you need to include the exemption handling to prevent your application from shutting down when there's an error, right, in your method when there's an error. So instead of shutting down the entire application, it will just the exemption will just cache the error and then returns that error to the user, right? So that's why you need the exemption handling. So now give for example, right? Just assume that we have a function called def and we have a function called add number, right? So we have two parameters which is a and b, and then this parameter is returning and this function is returning a plus b, right? So now let's assume we want to run this, which is add number. So we are passing 4 and 5, right? So if I'm printing this, it works, right? It gives me 9. So what if I print this? What if I print this? What happens? Now, you can see this is a type error. So instead of logging out of the computer, instead of showing this rubbish, right? See, this is a type error. All I just need to do is to catch it, right? Is to catch it. So what I'll do here is to use a try to write assumption. So use a try like this, column, then exempt exempt, then change the type error. So I'll put a type error, right? Put a type error like this. Then I will say return the variable must be of same type, of same integer type, right? So now if I run this, it will catch it. So the variables will be of the same integer type. So that's the reason, that is the advantage of this exemption, right? That is the advantage of this exemption handling, right? So now let's assume that I want to do divide by this, right? So what if I'm dividing by zero? What happens? Now there is a zero division error, right? So there's division error. So I can still do an exempt, right? Zero division error here, and then return the variable must not be divided by zero. Right, so if I run this, now the variable must not be divided by zero. You can see what happens, right? So that is the reason for exemption handling. You can see how simple it is, right? So now what happens if I do this? Will it raise an exemption? So let's find out. It doesn't raise an exemption, so it's actually calculated for me. So now let's look at the PowerPoint slide. So this is a basic exemption handling, right? These try, exempt, and finally blocks are used for handling exemption, right? Are used for handling exemption. You can see what I did. So here in this particular code, we have the type error, we have the zero division error, which you can also have. Finally, you can also return you can also return process completed, right? So if I run this, process completed. So that is how this works, right? That is how this works. So if you don't want to put this, it's not really necessary. If you don't want to put this, that is not necessary. So you can just stop with this, right? So you can see how the exemption handling works. So I urge you guys to practice this. So we have catching multiple exemptions. So instead of writing these like this, you can be able to like put them in one place, right? That is just what we did here. I will put the zero division error and then the value error, right? And then the value error, where make sure that everything you key in here must be a value. So that's where the value error comes into play. So we also have using the X clause, which the X clause block runs if no extension are raised, right? If no extension are raised. So it should just show you operation successful. So they're all the same, they are all the same, but just that we have different patterns of writing it, right? So if there's any question, please feel free to tell me. I'm always here to answer. You can see the exemption. Just know what exemption handling is and how you can write a basic exemption handling. Is just know that, and you can see that it's very very simple, right? It's very simple. So thank you and God bless you. We'll meet in class where we're going to be doing some revision and some practical works on this compulsory programming one. Thank you and God bless you.